Business over drinks. Business over drinks. This is Dave and Tom. This is business over drinks.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. Fuck.
Best intro ever. Hello everyone.
You've only been doing this for a year.
We're keeping this in.
Oh no, man. All right, fine. Hey everyone, whatever, something words. All right, Dave.
My name is David, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to our podcast, Business Over Drinks. How you doing?
Not too bad, Dave. We've got a special guest. I'm going to intro him in a second, but I just want to share something really important. This is the second time he's been on our show. The first time was at the very beginning when we didn't even have video because Dave couldn't afford a computer with a video camera on it. So now
I had a Nokia.
Now we've made it extra special. So we'd like to welcome William Gilchrist on our show from Konsyg. So before we let Will speak, because they're never going to let him speak, we're just going to talk over him for the longest possible time. We're going to introduce him. I'm not going to read his full bio because it is so long, but I'm just going to share a little bit about him. So Will's actually been in sales for over 15 years because he's quite old. And he's been doing technology sales, particularly in North America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. He actually has Bachelors of Arts in International Relations from Bowdoin College, and then TEFL Certification from GLV Zhuhai. That's a Chinese university and Chinese institution. I'm not going to read the rest because a lot of them are in Chinese characters, which I cannot read. But Will can, and Will can actually speak fluent Mandarin as well. So I hate him. Will has an extremely interesting background. We're going to touch on that a little bit during the conversation, but let's talk about his work specifically for his bio. So he's actually worked in Google before as a regional new business sales manager for Google in APAC. Will has also founded and facilitated international sales training courses for multiple departments. Will transition from Google to an APAC knowledge manager role where he focused on training and quality systems management for regional and global projects. That was also within Google, by the way. Will then ventured outside of Google to build and direct outbound sales teams for TradeGecko, which has been acquired by QuickBooks as a director. And then he was a vice president of MyDoc, which is a Singapore-based medical health startup. That's where I met Will, because Will and I both worked at the same company. I worked in marketing, Will worked in sales, and we didn't talk to each other. Will is currently the founder of Konsyg and runs an end-to-end sales operation for enterprises and SMEs globally. Will considers himself a salesman defined. I don't know what that means, Will, but here we go. Thanks for coming on our podcast, man.
What an intro. Intro. Yes, that you know what? You could tell we go back a long time. That's a proper intro.
Yeah, man. Like I was reading through it, I was thinking, I'm just gonna cut this out, cut that out, and then I changed my mind, and then I left it in, but I cut out other stuff I wanted to say. Because yeah, man, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna talk you up too much.
So my bio can probably be done in one sentence, and yours just makes me feel like how much I've failed in life and how much more I need to accomplish.
No. I mean, look, what I think, we're all selling ourselves, right? We always have to sell something. You sell yourself, and very often it's really difficult to sell yourself. That I've noticed. I always tell people that you need to see your bio or maybe see your LinkedIn profile or your resume like you're selling a car, right? How often does a car salesman talk so much about the anti-lock brakes or maybe the air conditioning and all the bells and whistles? But the reality is you are a car. You probably do a million things every day that you take for granted. And then when you actually sit down and think about it, you're like, okay, well, I'm just doing these two things. No, you actually do this, you do this, and there's a lot of other things as well that, can make all bios more robust. I think we all have great bios. It's just, how do we put them on paper?
Oh, that's a nice way of saying, Dave, that you're basically a broken down car that nobody really wants. All right. Hey, before we hurt Dave's feelings too much, because I keep on getting feedback from everyone that you're so mean to Dave. Like, Dave's a nice guy. Dave's an asshole. Let's just be very clear about that.
I'm a really good guy.
But so one thing's for sure is that Dave is not, and TSU are mean. So there's a lot of we just have
all right, this podcast is over, guys. Cancel. Cut it.
Yeah, I
Cancel.
think should this be an intervention on that?
Yeah, I know. We didn't want to tell you, TS, but I've been brought here.
So this is not even a bug. This is just like, let's just shit on him. All right. Oh, man. Before we get into this any further, because I think that's funny and also not true. Why don't we just have a quick introduction about like what we're drinking, man? Will, you want to start us off? What are you drinking?
I'm keeping it really simple today, guys. Fresh off of work, I like to do a little bit of the Maker's Mark bourbon. There we go.
Mm.
Oh, wow. If you ever doubted Will was American, he drinks bourbon neat. All right.
Sip on it. Neat, no ice, no water, slow. That's exactly how I do it.
Yeah. Ouch. Dave, what about you, man?
We just had a whiskey podcast up. Check it out, guys. We have some Tong shares some thoughts on bourbon in that episode. So tonight I'm drinking. I was inspired by Amy White, who was our wine specialist guest. We actually made a wine guide, small plug there, based on what she said. So if you go to businessoverdrinks.com/wine-guide or look at our show notes, we have a whole guide there on wine and like how to approach it. And one thing she advised was an entry-level wine you can do that still makes you sound a little bit impressive is to order a Tempranillo. So I checked it out. And it is really easy to drink. This one's called Hogs in the Woods. I got it for $9 at a bottle shop. And it goes down easy. It is there's a bit of acidity to it, a bit of a tang, but it's not bad. Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks, Dave. Good plug. I just had my first vaccination jab recently, so I'm taking a little bit easy on the alcohol just in case something goes wrong. I'm fine. Everything else is fine. I feel fine. I'm drinking a Big Drop Brewing Company from Australia. They do ultra low alcohol beers. So all the yumminess of a beer, which I'm not a massive fan of, but no alcohol and no happiness afterwards. Yay. I'm joking. It's actually really nice. It actually tastes really good and is pretty refreshing on a very hot day here in Singapore.
I'm sorry, TS. Are you saying that you're not really drinking alcohol today?
There's a little bit of alcohol in it, but not really. It's practically no alcohol. And I've got a genuine excuse. I took the COVID-19 vaccine, the first jab, and they told me not to drink alcohol. So I'm like, okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. Hiding behind the COVID. Hiding behind the COVID.
Hey, man, how do you think I excused all the bad figures to everyone in the company? I'm just like, yeah, COVID. No, it wasn't because I bought a house or anything. Right, moving beyond that. Let's jump straight into it, man. Dave, you want to start off with the questions?
So how much has changed? It's been a year, right? So how much has things changed since we last spoke, Will? I know you had Konsyg. It was how many years? How old is it now?
We're about 4.5 years old now.
Okay, so it's about 3.5 last year. So what's changed since then?
I mean, so much. I mean, I think that being in this COVID space, being in lockdowns, being in circuit breakers, not being able to travel, and relying heavily on things like Zoom, Google Hangouts, and Teams. I mean, I've used a lot of virtual meeting platforms before. Now I think everybody has every single virtual meeting platform installed now because that's just how we meet now and that's how we live. So we had to do a lot of adjustments. We were already kind of a remote team because we're an outsourced sales organization. So we're used to doing the business that we do was already remote, even though we have offices, but we're still calling overseas. We're calling, multiple countries every day. But our interactions with our clients, how we prospect, and also larger enterprise level deals are done now in the virtual space, where before you'd have to get on a flight, you have to go meet, you need to have dinner, maybe after drinks and business over drinks. And then from there, you're able to get a deal. So the only big change that it has done in terms of our business is that now the larger ticket items, the larger deal sizes are now also virtual. When before, no one would even have a meeting with you unless they were face-to-face once it kind of went above a certain price point.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people want to look in your eyes to see whether you're lying or not. What they don't realize is that I lie really well looking at people and not looking at people. I just do really well. So it's the same thing. I'm lying to you.
You lie to yourself really well, by the way.
Really, man. Every time I look in the mirror, I lie to myself. I'm like, you're a handsome man. I'm like, yep. All right.
You're that guy.
we're gonna go hard in the paint, Will. So you and I have discussed this before, I think, a little bit, and I know that you don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the Asian population, but stop Asian hate and all that stuff, right? But like I'll face this a lot. I work with a lot of different people from different areas. Can we talk a little bit about the discrimination or exploitation of Asians in business? To be very fair, like I'll just hark back on a completely like a it's an example of things that happen, right? So where people, it's happened to me before, where I've been in a meeting where we're discussing something and I'm talking about my scope of work, and then I have a non-Asian come into the conversation and then condescendingly tell me what my own work is all about. Like basically tell me, this is what you are doing, this is what you should be doing, right? And they're not the client, they're not the boss, they're not anything. They're just someone who thinks that they know better than me because, well, they're not Asian. I know you don't do that. I know you've lived and worked in Asia for a long time, but you also work and hire a lot of Asian people because you live here, right? You work with and you hire a lot of Asian people. Like, what are some of the things that you see, man? Like, is this something that maybe I'm too sensitive, or is this something that really exists?
No, I definitely think it's something that really exists. I think that, in full disclaimer, I've been in Asia my entire adult life and almost half my entire life, but I wouldn't even remotely try to act like I'm Asian at all. I'm not. I don't go through, the same things. And by looking at me, obviously, I have a whole other set of issues to deal with. But
yeah, diabetes. That's
yeah,
all.
exactly. But no, I think that I see that often where there is kind of this kind of colonial mindset that can happen in business when it comes to that. For one, let me start by just saying that a lot of the multinationals, a lot of global businesses out there that are doing constant global business happen to be Western, right? Now, if that's the case to start, there's like a weird mindset that I think sets in with a lot of people that are also from the West. Because, I mean, you look at places like, McDonald's, Starbucks, I mean, these are recognizable, brands out there, right? But then if you say Toastbox in New York, no one's going to know what that is, right? That's not a diss to Toastbox, but the point is that more Western companies are global and have a global presence with global teams. And my mentor, actually, Kyle Hegarty, he does a lot of cross-cultural training and trying to kind of bridge that Western and Eastern conversation. And it is a tough one because in general, you do have a few types, I think, of Westerners that will come over and have that kind of colonial mindset. I don't know a better word to put it, where they believe, look, let me just Western explain everything. So I'm going to pretty much reiterate the same exact thing they did that you said. That's one version. You have another version that is just completely not. So that person is unaware of Asia and also doesn't care. You also have another version of that as well, which is somebody who is in Asia. They claim to care and they still have that mindset. And then you have another Westerner that can come over and frankly, it's just another day at the office. Everybody is the exact same. They understand and can bake themselves into cultures. They understand that, cultures are different, but, in terms of getting work done and, A is always A and 1 + 1 is always 2, regardless of whatever culture you're from. If they come with that mindset and not kind of put a veil of, like a Western colonial mindset on it, then I think they'll synergize more. And I would like to think that I fall into that third bucket, right? Which is someone who's just, look, I'm existing here. I'm aware of, selling in Malaysia versus selling in the Philippines versus selling in China are totally different realities. So there is no such thing as an Asian thing because Asia, I've been here long enough to know the differences between Japan and India and Qatar, all in Asia, right? These are very different places. So I think a lot of times I've seen it, and it usually comes from very inexperienced and very ignorant individuals who've come over and they assume that the world as it is in New York is going to be the same as it is in Ho Chi Minh City, or because they've had a lot of success in Norway, that they're going to have a lot of success in Singapore. And that's just farthest from the truth.
All right, so I'm just going to tell a really quick anecdote about something that happened to me over a decade ago, but also just want to say that people in Qatar they're not going to disagree with you technically about being in Asia, but they're going to say that they're not really in Asia. Technically, they are. They should know that geography better, but okay, cool. Shout out to the Qataris.
Yeah, shout out to the Qataris. But like, even if we were to go a little bit closer to home, I mean, we're in Singapore, TS, right?
Mhm.
You have Singapore, you have Vietnam, you have Malaysia, you have Indonesia, you have Philippines, you have Hong Kong, and then you have mainland China, right? Then you have Taiwan, Korea, North Korea, and Japan. Name me one market that's similar to each other when it comes to business. None of those markets.
Oh yeah,
are
they
the
don't
same.
exist. I mean,
right?
you can't. There's no single strategy that works across any of those markets.
So if that's the case, business-wise and even culture-wise, right? Individuals who come over who kind of have an Asia blanket and they see Asia as Asia, well, that is the farthest from understanding the complexities of where we're at, right? And I think it takes particularly people who aren't from the region to be here for long periods of time to understand that. But I think that's in short, after a long-winded response, I think that's where it comes from. It comes from inexperienced individuals who are looking to try to do a broad stroke paintbrush.
No, I agree. I agree. Just real quick, Dave, I'm going to let you have a question in a minute. But the Sean anecdote is I worked for this American guy when I first came to Singapore, like one of my first few jobs. And he would bring in consultants from the US, so fly them all over to Singapore, set them up for 6 months, because he told us, all of us, like experienced people, me being a very junior person in the company, I think we need some innovative thinking and some creative and quality minds in the office to make up for what we're lacking here. Just right in front of all of us, right? Just insulting in front of all of us. And so we need to bring in some American talent, some real proper American Midwestern talent. That's what he told us. And that's me going like, hello, Americans don't know anything about Singapore. They've never been here before. I'm sure they're nice people. And me being told to shut up at least 3 times. I was told to shut up at least 3 times during meetings. So I remember that very clearly because that was my first proper introduction to how people saw Asia. They're like, you don't know anything, even though you've been here, you worked here, you're successful. You don't know anything. No matter what you say, if it's not what I think is right, it's not right. I was like, okay.
Well, you see this in large MNCs as well. I mean, I know a large MNC, which I won't say on this podcast, but a very recognizable company.
Name and shame, name and shame.
Yeah, right. But there's a large MNC that everybody knows, very popular, very, very progressive company. Can
I guess? Will, can I guess? Our podcast will do really well if I guess it right. I'm joking, Karen. Sorry, Karen.
I would tell you if you guessed it. I'll give you one guess and I'll honestly answer it. If
LinkedIn.
No.
Damn it.
That was
Google.
the only one. No. Definitely. Google's actually done pretty well with that. But I think that with this particular company, they came over and they put somebody who had never lived in Asia before, who was from Kentucky, over their Japanese office. This sounds like a joke. Now, to us, understanding the region, think about this for a minute. Somebody who's from Kentucky, who's never been to Asia, who's over heading up the Japan office for this company. I mean, that just shows a complete lack of understanding of the region and how complex it really is here, So I think when you see moves like that from a very, successful company in the West coming over, and you see these things happen, that could also show why, even from a staffing perspective, you might have individuals with a certain mindset, almost like a colonial mindset or like a manifest destiny mindset, which is, no, this is our show because look at this. I get to go to the Sheraton. I get to go to there's McDonald's here. There's Popeyes here. Yeah, no, our businesses are here, right? I think that's a mindset that a lot of particularly Westerners can easily subscribe to and can create a narrative that almost kind of justifies itself, but it's not necessarily factual and it's not fully aware of what this market is and what Asia is as a whole. That's probably the best way I can answer it as a non-Asian. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Hey, Dave, man, do you have any thoughts about this? Because I
Yeah.
feel like you as an Asian person who's living in Australia, you might have come across a little bit of this.
Yeah. So there's also a lot of Asian versus Asian. Like, there's a lot of discrimination goes on in Asia itself. Like, there's clearly a mistreatment of construction workers and tradespeople in Asia and helpers, and the way they treat refugees. There's a lot of complaints about how Australia and America treats refugees, but if you look at specific Asian countries, they're so much worse, right? So I don't think Asians can get away innocently about racism and hate and stuff, because when it happens, so even more so within Asia itself. But aside from that, Will, like, as you mentioned earlier, you're clearly not Asian, right? So what kind of discrimination have you faced yourself, and how did you kind of overcome it being in Asia as an American?
There's more discrimination for me in my profile in America than there would be for me in Asia. In Asia, shockingly, I haven't experienced it because I'm foreign. And, for somebody of my profile, being in America, being foreign ain't that bad. That's actually a pretty good deal. So that means I'm equal to all the other foreigners. Great. That means I'm considered as just a foreigner. Great. Right. And all the assumptions that comes from that. So whether you're from the UK or whether you're from France, whether you're from Italy, whether you're from Greece, whether you're from the US, whether you're from Canada, whatever your ethnicity, you're just foreign in a lot of these countries in Asia. So that actually works for someone like me, because there are a lot of challenges in the States for my profile in particular, because there's extra assumptions that could come with it. There's extra challenges, there's historical context. There is no historical context of my profile in Asia. So there isn't like a template in terms of how somebody would be discriminatory towards someone like me. The only way that I would be discriminated against would be based on me being foreign. And even then, I can't say that it's necessarily that bad, because I'm well aware of privilege. And I do think that there is such a thing as foreigner privilege that exists, right? And I respect it and I understand it, and I'll never act like it isn't there and just say, well, I've been discriminated against. No, I've gotten so many passes and just accolades in life just from being foreign. So that, I have to acknowledge it.
Yo, Will massively takes advantage of it, man. Like, Will's just like, I'm foreign, let me do what I like, and Will just walks in, just does stuff, man. It's cool. Like,
I wish it was that easy, but no, but things. I think that the worst thing someone can do is to not acknowledge the fact that there are privileges when they have them, right? And then to try to pull I'm discriminating against. I honestly haven't. I go to airports here. I'm treated perfectly. I walk around in Singapore any time of night, exercising with my dog. Never been double questioned. I have, applied for my, employment passes and PRs, stuff like that. No questions, right? That is pure privilege of my passport and being where I'm from. Sure. So I won't act like that. It's not true.
It depends what kind of foreigner you are as well in Singapore, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry for Tong. Even when Tong was a foreigner in Australia, there's no you don't get foreigner benefits in Australia.
I'll get, man, I got no benefits here, and I got no benefits in Australia. I got no benefits wherever I went to. I was what we could call a cheap tourist and unwanted immigrant. Like those are the formal definitions of my thing. Will's like, I'm an expat. I'm like, I'm foreign talent. That's how I was seen, man. It was fascinating. Like, I'm very angry about it, but I'm also fascinated at the same time. So that's cool.
Tong visited me in Australia. Man. His first night here, we went to the valley, and someone drove past and just yelled something. What was it? What did he yell?
Go back home, you chink. I think that's what he yelled.
No one's ever said that to me. Like, not in years anyway. And it's so funny. Your very first night in Australia.
Yeah, I think it was because I was wearing like traditional Chinese garb and stuff with a hat and like the red
the straw hat.
Yeah, no, man. Like that was the first that was my first proper experience of racism in Australia. It was great. Then every night after that, like at least 10 experiences of that. It was brilliant. Loved it. Loved
You
every
said
minute.
at least 10
Yeah.
experiences after that.
Oh no, you
Oh,
can
coming
ask
from me.
Dave. You can ask Dave. I've cut away your stuff, Dave. Then it'd be 200. I've ignored all your stuff. Like there was just like a ton of racism there. It was fine. I grew up in a foreign country where I was like a little bit like Will in that sense. I was a foreigner and seen as different. So I also had foreigner privilege there growing up when I was a kid. And yeah, then I grew up with racism. I grew up with like everyone being racist, positive and negative.
There was
So
war where you came from, right? Sri
yeah.
Lanka?
So that was different though. Like that wasn't that was racism, race-based war, but like I didn't really face much there. We just saw bombs and
Yeah,
stuff.
fair enough.
Guys,
You just saw bombs. That's it.
yeah, I'm gonna change the topic because that's just gonna make me really sad. I'm gonna wish this was a full
Okay.
alcohol beer. Uh, so well, I mean, I think we started off real heavy because I wanted to get all the big guns out, and I think that just wanted to lump everything together. But maybe we can talk about client horror stories for a minute, man, because you and I have been talking about this for a while. Like I've had my own client horror stories. I know Dave has his own client horror stories as well. But like, do you have any horror stories you want to share?
Not necessarily horror stories. I mean, I think that in the first year, we just had growing pains. We didn't know what an ideal client was, and what type of client, what behaviors to look out for, what are some red flags and things like that to look at. Over the years, we've dealt with enough companies, enough personalities, and enough things to be able to assess whether or not we want to take the contracts that we're given, and we have this system where before we send an actual agreement, we do like a deep dive, right? And that's where we really not only analyze products, but we also analyze our clients or our potential client. What type of client is this going to be? That has minimized the horror stories significantly. Of course, there are some blunders and things like that, personalities. I mean, we had one guy who literally just one day he was this is a few years ago, this had to be like late 2019. He was profusely sweating all the time, and he just looked like he was on edge. There was clearly something going on. He was sitting in Bangkok. I don't know what he was on all the time, but he just seemed really off. And we were in the meeting, we're in suits and everything like that, and he's just scrambling around, and we didn't know which guy we would get when we met up with him for the catch-ups. Some days we get a guy who's extremely excited to see us, really happy. Another day we would get someone who's tired and kind of weak and is really not willing to talk. Another day we get an aggressive bulldog that's ready to fire us and tear our heads off, And it was absolute torture for an entire quarter because we literally were on edge every week and just dreading this meeting with this guy because we didn't know who we get. Like he had like 7 different personalities. Thank God we were able to part ways and just say, "Ooh," it's one of the few campaigns that when we parted ways, we're like, "Oh, thank God!" Like I don't want to do those meetings anymore. We have no clue who we were getting. We were literally, the client. Our client was 7 different people, and it was one guy.
Oh man, that sounds horrible, man. Dave and I had I wouldn't call it a horror story per se, but we had a client. I remember when we were supposed to do some social media work for them and content development in Malaysia. They signed a contract. Like Dave, it was you, me, and another team member were on a call, and then they signed the contract. We were good to go. Dave and I were talking about next steps, and then for the next 3 weeks, we couldn't reach the client. They just ignored all our calls, messages, emails, everything. I think they signed a contract and then got scared and just never just, because I even gave them an out. I say like, hey, if this is not work, if you don't want to do it, we can break contract, no penalties. I just need to know so I can tell the team. And like no word from them. I've seen them active in their Malaysian company. I've seen them active still, so they still exist. And I've seen the person like, and who knows people I know and stuff. I'm so confused by that because I was like, we had good conversations. They agreed to everything and they signed the contract. So there wasn't like any red flags before. And then the moment they signed the contract, they disappeared off the face of the earth. It was the weirdest client I've ever had. Dave, I'm not even sure they remember this because you literally were involved for just the calls, and then they disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I think I know. I won't mention their names though.
Yeah, don't mention the names, man. I mean, I will later in private, but like, no, it's fascinating, man. Like, no, because like client horror stories to me is interesting. I think like you will, I also use like deep dives in order to kind of filter them out. But like there are, for me, some of the horror stories come really before we even start the work. Like I remember having a great conversation with this very big, it was going to be one of our biggest clients, right? They came to us because they got referred to us, and they said, okay, we really want to work with you guys. I'm like, this is brilliant. This makes my job 1,000 times easier. We had a really good call, and they said money's not really an object, so don't worry about it. Develop something that makes sense for us so that we can achieve our targets, our goals. So their goals were aggressive but very doable, and we had a good conversation. I spoke to the head of marketing. I spoke to everyone there. And then when we were developing the program, I said, hey guys, it's going to be a bit pricey. We could cut down price if we remove these things. Do you have any sort of target budget in mind? So they gave us a number, right? I was like, oh, cool. Okay. But I thought something in my mind just said, is this monthly or yearly? Because we're supposed to be a 12-month retainer. I said, is it monthly or yearly? They're like, oh, that's the entire budget we have. It was the entire budget for the year for 12 months was almost less than 1 month that we would have charged them.
Well, the key sign there is whenever any prospect tells us that money is no object, the first thing that we do is, money is the biggest object. Every single prospect I've ever sold to who has ever told me money's no object has never ended up actually being our client and has stated that we're too expensive. Every time. I don't know a single client that's been like, yeah, no, money's no object. Every time.
Yeah, no, that's been my experience as well, because it was interesting because we didn't even come out hot with our budget or anything. We were just talking to them about work, and they were really excited in some of the stuff we were saying. So it was a really good conversation. We weren't even talking budget because they're a very big company. So they're not a small company, they're a very big company. I know that they were paying decent budgets before because I know who they worked with. But it was this conversation just made me sad. Like I saw what was happening. They were basically, when you say money's no object, I kind of expect you to be like, okay, money is an object, but I'm gonna say that because I want to see crazy ideas, and then I can bargain you down. But we were almost 12 times more than what we were gonna charge them 12 times more than that. That's crazy. Like, we're not even that expensive, man.
That's the thing. Whenever anybody says money is no object, money is an object 180% every time. That's a red flag for us over here at Konsyg for sure.
I have a client horror story. We have an episode, Tony and I have a good one called Client Horror Stories. Check it out. My client, I was so scared of my client that I had a nightmare of him shitting in a bathtub. And then my business partners told him about it. So, but client horror stories.
Your business partner being TS?
No. Don't exaggerate it. He'd say he'd add stuff to the nightmare.
I'd give you the nightmare, man. I'd be the guy shitting in the tub, man.
So obviously last year for many people was a tumultuous year. So what have you done to kind of grow and excel in business throughout it? What are some key points you've kind of learned throughout this time?
Yeah, one of the key things that we've done is leveraging automation. We had automations in our organization before. We had to heavily rely on automating so many processes, though, far beyond what I was accustomed to. And we spent probably the last year really investing heavily in automated tools, even booking tools, do our outreach for ourselves to acquire new business for Konsyg, but then also for our clients also. A lot of pre-qualification stuff. So we really invested heavily in technology. And actually, it's funny that the companies that we're here to help and to assist, expand, and grow more revenue, we are now coming back to them to help us help them, right? With, using their technology to be able to help us in our efforts. There's a lot of, there's a new one right now that I'm just in love with. They're not our client. I would love for them to be, so let me shout it out. Fireflies.ai, amazing platform, right? These are the type of softwares that we're starting to leverage now to assist us in meetings and just being able to understand what we need to do and to be able to make our job easier. In the new norm, automation has been key, and being smart enough to say, look, you know what, this takes an extra 30 minutes of my day. It's worth me at least spending X amount of dollars a month to ensure that 30 minutes is back with me, because now I need to sit here at a desk. I need to, really be stronger than I've ever been, and we've ever been as a company. So it's worth the investment. So in a way, I'm saying for business owners out there, invest in more technology if you want to be better during this time. That it's priceless.
Do you have any examples of how the automation would work, or like any way, any things you've kind of shifted to, like any things you've kind of delegated with automation in your business processes?
Yeah, I mean, I could shout out a bunch of companies as well. I mean, in terms of onboarding, we have an automated system now in terms of onboarding new hires, right? So from our HR department, right? Our HR is probably 60% automated now. So by the time our HR director is actually interviewing someone, they've taken an exam that's automated. They've been able to schedule their own exam. They've been able to apply for the role. They've been able to do initial interview that's automated. And then they come to our actual HR director who does kind of a deeper interview. That's one example. From HR perspective, we have an operations team that has automated everything from a lot of our outreach on multiple platforms. Also at the same time, how we've been able to capture inbound as well. A lot of that's done by software now. Our meetings, when we are going from our own personal development, like I mentioned, Fireflies, it transcribes everything that was said in the meeting. So not only do we get a recording of the meeting, but we also get an actual ledger of exactly what was said, a transcription of everything, a full script. And that helps us to be able to organize things. And you could even say trigger words in Fireflies to be able to organize the conversation. So if I say, okay, so now the next steps, it'll say, okay, you said next steps. I'm going to organize everything that was said after that. So little things like that, it just makes it absolutely phenomenal. X.AI has been amazing for us as well. We've embedded it throughout our website and a lot of parts of our business. And it's able to allow us to organize meetings without having to think too much. And that's been phenomenal. Our presentations are now through DocSend. So now we have analytics on what people are reading or what they're not reading. I mean, we've been really leveraging technology heavily to be able to make our jobs easier, because sales is already hard enough. And to organize all this stuff, you really, at this point, you're going to really need to leverage technology, not just Zoom or, Microsoft Teams or Google Hangout. It goes far beyond that.
Hey, Google Docs, okay? God damn.
Google Docs all day. But also, the key thing as well, guys, is, not just technology, but all these technologies integrate with each other. Integrations is also a piece of this automation world that is just absolutely phenomenal. To be able to integrate, this software with that software, which speaks to that and this, and you're able to get exactly what you need. It's something that's absolutely priceless.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Automation is awesome. We've been automating a little bit here and there. We try to do more and more. It's just, I think it's tougher. It's tougher in our industry versus in sales, because I don't want to speak on behalf of Will, but like our process tends to be a little bit more customized in the sense for each client. So it's very difficult to create a very clear process. But what we could automate, we automated quite a lot. And that's really helped us in the long run, and we save a lot on cost that way. So the initial cost was definitely worth it. So yeah, automation is a big thing, man. Well, can we take a little bit of a turn and really go into kind of the like questions about sales, really, right? Because I've got a couple of bones to pick with you and all salespeople out there. I call them salespeople, but they're not really salespeople, just pain in the asses, right?
Sure. I'm sorry. You do branding? Is that
No,
what you
man,
do?
hey, man, hey,
Right.
listen. I don't need a used car salesman to go and judge what I do, right?
You guys put up really nice billboards for those cars.
Oh, oh, here we go. This is really offensive. Dave, don't take offense to this, man. He doesn't even count you as anything, freelancer. Sorry. So, anywho, man, I said I've been getting a lot of like sales pitches because everyone's doing it now, email, and they're doing it online, LinkedIn and stuff. But they're using very similar scripts that are trying to induce guilt or sympathy. Like, I'm just trying to. I don't know. First of all, is that a thing? Am I seeing a pattern when there's no pattern? And how do I tell everybody, like, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. I just want to tell everyone on this podcast, like, how do I tell everyone, like, I do not give a flying fuck. Stop emailing me 1,000 emails every single day.
Yeah. I think that, okay, one, I don't know those particular messages that you're getting. I don't know if you've seen my LinkedIn over the course of the last year. Whenever I got really bad prospecting emails or messages, I would actually post them. I'd block out the names of the company and I'd block out the names of the person to protect the innocent. But then I would underline all the areas that were problematic in the prospecting email. And then, so that was like a trend that I was doing for a while. The best way to get a bad salesperson off you is to be very short, sweet, and direct, like responding by no or not interested. That's it, right? If you go and give any kind of leeway, if they're an inexperienced salesperson, they're not really going to know how to. They're going to, oh, well, maybe there's a chance. Maybe I can, wiggle my way in. And that's not sales at all, but that's usually the inexperienced salespeople. The more experienced salespeople would take the hint. But I think the best thing universally for all of them is literally just no, not interested. And just leave it there. And that's the best way to get them off you.
So I shouldn't insult the parents and the grandparents and the family.
There's still a chance because, a salesperson might come back and say, I agree with you, actually. My parents are terrible. But, it's funny that you bring that up because, and then
I bet if you say, like, if you keep talking to me, I'll put a curse on your family and your loved ones.
Well, that's interesting because, like, what practice do you use? Are you voodoo? Are you, what I mean?
This is why people hire Will,
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Well, you do curses and hexes. I'm trying to learn that as well. I'm trying to get into curses and hexes too. What do you learn? Maybe we can get on a call and talk about, how to put a hex on someone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, the best thing to do is to keep it short and sweet and just say no. It's funny. It's the simplest answer and also the most effective.
I'm going to paint with some really broad strokes, but just in case for those who are listening who are either a small business owner or multinational or someone who works in multinational, I'd love to get some sales tips firstly from a small business perspective, and then from someone who's trying to employ or engage with a sales team from a multinational perspective. So let's say small business. Any advice for a B2B, let's say a PR agency or a marketing agency? Where would you start? What kind of things would you do?
In terms of employing salespeople?
Or just I guess from a small business, you're a one-man shop for now, or you have a business partner. What advice would you give to the person who's trying to grow and develop the business, get sales, get leads, and so forth?
Yeah, so there's one or two ways to do that. If they are just starting out, right? Go out there and try to sell. But don't just try to sell. Look at how hard it is to actually sell the business. And I usually encourage people who are 1-2-man shops to go out and sell themselves before they come to a company like ours, because we want them to feel it so they know how complicated this stuff really is. And once they understand how complicated it is, then they'll be able to have a rational conversation with, let's say, an outsourcing team, or they'll be able to have realistic expectations for the salespeople that they hire. What happens is 93% of all founders, a Carey Institute did this study, 93% of all founders have never worked the sales floor, never managed salespeople before. They don't have a sales background, right? They're probably either engineers or they may be marketers or whatever, right? But they've never actually done sales before. That's a challenge because everybody thinks they can do sales. Since everybody thinks they can do sales, when they hire salespeople, they'll say, yeah, great. Now go out there and get me $10 million in the next 6 months. And if not, you're a bad salesperson. You're supposed to do some sales witchcraft and be able to make something happen. the founders that I've met who have tried to sell it themselves and have clients and have gotten some good revenue on their own efforts have a totally different perspective. They're able to understand this stuff is hard. Yes, we're hiring somebody not because we need them to be a magician or to magically solve our sales problem. No. This is hard work and they got to figure this out. And we want to support that person in their efforts to try to, get us more revenue. So when I'm watching them, drink coffee, walking down the hallway, I know they're not just taking a load off. They're actually trying to think about their pipeline and try to figure out ways to do better approaches and different outreach tactics. That in itself, I think would be the best advice that I would give is do it yourself for a year, 6 months, go see how many deals you close on your own and not deals from your personal network, right? Everybody can do that. Oh yeah, I know a guy who knows a guy, I got referrals. That's not sales. We're talking cold approach. You're going out there, you're meeting people in a cafe or a bar, you're doing a cold call. Somebody you have no idea who's not in your network at all, go close 20 people and have them to be active clients, and you had no first, second, or third degree connection with them. That will give you a better perspective on how to either hire sales talent or on how to grow your business or how to outsource it, right? One of three ways, but that's the only way that I would say to be the most effective and the most genuine way to be able to grow your business.
Sticking to small business, one struggle we had was we loved when we used to hire business development people. Fair enough, give them a chance, but how long would you give them a chance?
This is not with me, guys. By the way, I just want to make very clear. Dave and I didn't hire business development people together. I don't believe in that. It's not real.
So
sorry, Karen.
So let's say how long do you get? I understand that sales is really difficult, but let's say how long would you give them a chance if they don't close anything within 3-6 months and so forth, where it's starting to eat away at your company cash flow?
It's a great question. How long did it take the business owner to close third to fourth degree connections, right? Individuals who they don't know, right? That's exactly the answer to that, right? How long did it take the owner to close people that you never met before and were not referrals, right? If it took that person 3 months, then make the expectation 3 months. But have you closed 20 people on your own independently of any referral or anything like that, or any inbound? No inbound or anything like that, pure outbound. How long did it take you? And however long it took you is how long it should take the other person, if not less.
Interesting. So just skipping to the multinational part. Let's say, your company is grown to a certain size and you want to expand significantly and you need to feed all your employees and so forth. Any sales strategies or tips? Let's say you want to go national. You want to go, Singapore is pretty easy to go national, but let's say you want to go multinational. How would you expand your sales team? Like, how do you start? And so forth?
Yeah, I think that, the first thing is that understanding your ideal customer profile, and it really is going to be dependent on the vertical, the industry, and the type of business, right?
Yep.
And how ready is the product for the world, for multiple nations, right? If all of that's in order, the best thing to do is first, I would say, create a hub and just see how your home-based sales team is operating across these different countries. Now, time zones are also an issue as well, right? Because if you're really trying to go global, you might want to consider opening up other offices or getting talent overseas or in these markets. But if you're dealing from different hubs, like Konsyg deals with 11 different hubs, we have 11 offices around the world, right? So if that's the case, then it's a little bit easier to be able to do the proper coverage. If you're dealing with one team that's existing in your home country looking to go global, you might want to consider recruiting people from other areas as well to be a part of your sales team, just to match apples with apples, right? There's only so much a New Yorker can do in Singapore. There's only so much somebody from Singapore can do in New York, right? And there is going to be a glass ceiling to be able to navigate those markets and to be able to really extract the proper revenue. So eventually you might want to go a little bit more regional in your recruitment and in your sales talent. But to start out, if you're a startup, stick with the hub model, but make sure that you're understanding and hiring from there. If you're a multinational or a larger business, you have to branch out. It's the only way to be able to scale.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's interesting, man. I think that's really interesting because like going back to the point, like how long should you keep someone before you kind of like, you know, what's the time frame they need to work for you before they start to get sales. That's a really good barometer, like, you know, 20 unrelated new business contacts, kind of get them in there. We've always had trouble with new business on our side. I was joking when I said I don't believe in it. I just think that in my industry it's always tougher, purely because our vetting process is very, very different than a standard sales process. So usually people who sell in the PR and content industry tend to have to be PR and content people. So, and they're generally not very good salespeople. In all honesty, you got to train them to become better salespeople. So that's something that we've seen, man. Will, so you mentioned that you had like 11 offices, right? Like, I mean, that was a bit of a brag, but all right, well done. I mean, I'm really interested in this because we're scaling and we're growing as well. We're thinking the moment the pandemic's kind of like slowing down, we're going to be potentially expanding in the Philippines and Vietnam. I'd really like to find out, man, like, can you give us some tips on how on building and scaling a team?
Yeah, I think it all starts with talent, right? You chase the talent. If there are, you know, a core group of at least 5 individuals who you find to be talented in what you want and cover kind of a region that you really want to, you know, tackle, I would say start some form of an office, get registered there. So follow the people, follow the skill sets. That's going to be probably the best way to figure out whether or not you want an office there. And if you're able to get a core team, and we put it at 5, if you're able to get at least 5 people that you're like, wow, these people are actually really good, they're covering a region that we need, then from there, investing to be able to set up that office and that expansion would be key.
All right, so man, what you're saying is you kind of just got to take the leap. You got to find the people. You got to count on the talent, kind of keep helping you grow and scale there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can still play it safe. You don't need to set up anything until you've at least found, you know, 5 core people that you think are, you know, are in it for the long haul or semi long haul. But before then, you know, keep it a contract and then move into the actual place once you've been able to get that kind of core hub.
Nice. All right, man. That's interesting. I've got kind of it's not really a follow-up, but I've got a question because it's based on our conversations that we've had, Will, you and I've had off air. You've mentioned that it's challenging when you go to certain markets in general. So blanket statement, obviously, when you go to certain markets to get businesses to understand the value of external sales function. Is that a mindset issue? Is that like an Asian versus a more westernized mindset? Like what are the issues that you're facing?
It's a really good question. In terms of, I know we spoke about the topic, but yeah, the Asian versus Western piece is an interesting addition to it, which we didn't cover. I will say that there are regional trends. And the regional trends across a few markets, right? Europe is very different than the US, which they're both very different than APAC. The idea of outsourcing sales and the idea of just going global in general is approached very differently in Asia that I found. The appetite to go global is also different, right? So when you're looking at Singaporean technology companies in particular, they want to kind of canvas Singapore. And then once they've canvassed Singapore, then, you know, maximum thought is probably regional. And then that's for maybe another few years. And then, okay, maybe if we have time, we'll look at Europe. Yeah, we'll kind of do it. But usually the trend is a little bit slower, where in the US, it's kind of like, look, if I've dominated my state, it doesn't even need to be all of America, just my state, right? We're the number one whatever in Mississippi. Okay, we can go global. I got an example of that. There's a company called Big Ass Fans. They're in all the MRTs here. Have you seen that company? Big Ass Fans?
Yeah,
They're huge fans.
Yeah.
They're all over Singapore, right? They're from Louisville, Kentucky. They got an office over in Tempranillo in Singapore. They're from Louisville, Kentucky. They're just like a regular fan company that as soon as they got success, and they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars now. I find that fan company to be a prime example of that kind of quick global kind of space. So with that mentality, the idea to act fast and the idea to go global and the idea to move, the appetite is different in a market like that. So the need to outsource sales is going to be obviously there, right? I mean, a lot of the reason why, a big chunk of the Philippines economy is from BPOs.
Yep.
And who's creating the BPOs? You have a lot of, Citibank, you have HSBC, you have, a lot of very, very Western influenced groups, McDonald's, right? That have pushed to outsourcing really fast. India, you have Philippines, you have also Poland. And a lot of this are US companies that are trying to push to go global so fast that they need to now outsource. So with that being said, yeah, America is going to be a little bit easier to sell to in terms of outsourcing sales. They'll understand it better because their businesses are behaving differently. When you're dealing within region, in Southeast Asia in particular, that conversation is a little different. It has a few more additions to it, and there's less of a global splash appetite and more of a slowly progressive, metric success rate. It's less cowboy. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but
oh no, you're saying one's better than the other. You're definitely saying one's better than the other. I can tell by the tone of your voice. That's okay, Will.
I did not say that.
That's okay, Will. I think we
set
should.
Me up. This is a setup.
Stop Asian hate.
Yeah, Asian hate, mate. Asian hate. That's all I'm saying. No. You got a point. You got a point. I think there's always you're skirting risk a little bit. Like there's a risk averseness to a lot of things when it comes to business that I've seen. Or if the risk is very much muted in that sense, and I get it. I understand why. But yeah, man, that's fascinating. Like it's always good to have a different viewpoint on that, because when living in Singapore, living in specific, like especially in the startup and SME industry, you get very, very, you live in a kind of a bubble. So always seeing the viewpoints from outside are very important to kind of keep you grounded.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately, and I really do mean that neither side is better, because the reality is there's so many American companies that fly up in the air and just explode, right?
Yeah.
And then nothing happens, and they're not there anymore, and then that same person has a senior level manager job at an MNC that we all know, right? And that happens all the time. And that's cool in the Valley, right? Yeah, no, I had a startup for a while and it didn't work out. And now I'm, regional director of XYZ, right? That's a thing, right? Which is sad and scary, because would you start your startup to win? So that's the negative side, I would say, of like US style. But the positive side is that it is aggressive and it will outsource. It will look at outsource sales as an option, as a real option, and there wouldn't be much of a need to even have your own sales team because you're already outsourcing it and you have a proper team doing it. So that's what I've seen.
Love to keep talking about that, but I'm mindful of your time, Will, and I thought we'd kind of do the last part of this episode on your diabetes. We were talking about it pre-chat, and it's a pretty inspiring story. Like you don't have diabetes. You had diabetes. Now it's gone. Like how the hell did that happen?
Well, let me clarify. It's not necessarily gone because it never really goes. But the reality is that it's at levels to where I exist pretty regularly now. So diabetes is actually, it runs in my family. And I found out in December that I was type 2 diabetic. My HbA1c was 10.9. I know that sounds really nerdy if you guys don't know, but it was quite high. And they were saying, okay, wow, we're putting you on meds right now and all that. And I started to heavily research not just diabetes, but insulin resistance and what spikes your your glucose levels and things like that. And I got heavily into keto, exercising, and just intermittent fasting. And that's what I kind of came through my research. And I was able to get my HbA1c down to normal levels, which is 5.3 to 5.4, which is quite good in terms of, beyond good. It's better than I think I was before I even knew I was diabetic, or when I wasn't diabetic, actually. I'm sure my HbA1c was a lot higher. So to be able to get it down there effectively means that, yeah, I'm not diabetic. I'm not on medications anymore. I eat, I drink, all that. As you guys can see, I drink. So nothing's really necessarily changed, just some dietary shifts.
Yeah, I just want to share that, like, a couple of weeks ago, I was at Will's place. We were having dinner at his place, and Will had a feast. Like he's like, oh, I eat roughly this amount every single day. And it was a feast. We're talking steaks, massive pieces of salmon, roasted wedge, a cheese board, cold cuts, pickles, and about 3 bottles of wine. And he was like, yeah.
You gotta have the wine. You gotta have the wine.
Yeah.
You have to have it.
Yeah, he was like, oh, this is just normal meal. This is my one meal. And I ate so much, I wanted to throw up the whole time. It was really good. It was really tasty. That's why, but it was way too much food for me.
Yeah, no, quality food. We didn't have dessert, but we could, right? There's Greek yogurts with blackberries and chia seeds, and there's a lot of really cool, tasty desserts. The thing is, researching how to live with it, acknowledging it first off. And this whole, like, all things in moderation, that's a lie, right? This whole, like, all things in moderation. Yeah, you can have like a little bit of rice here. You can have a little bit of grain. No, like, shift your entire, if you have diabetes, or if you're on the cusp of being a type 2 diabetic, change it all, but change it for the better. Like TS was saying, he was at dinner. We had a feast. You didn't walk out of there hungry. You're not going to eat grass all day. And it's tasty food and good food. Just research what you can and can't eat.
Yeah, and so much alcohol, and like just so much alcohol. So I'm pointing that out too.
So it's just eating once a day, and
I decided to do that. That's not necessarily that's not necessary, right? I'm doing that because since I'm already on this journey, I jumped into intermittent fasting as well. I'm rucking with a rucksack and doing long walks and all that stuff. So there's a lot of extra things that I'm doing just because I was literally trying to go for reversal. I wasn't trying to live with it. I'm like, no, I'm trying to reverse this thing. But you can, you can do your regular meals and all that stuff. Just remove grains, noodles, rice. I know that sounds bad, but once you actually calculate what you can eat, and I think the best thing to do is to discard all the things that you shouldn't be eating, and then bring in all the things you can eat and accelerate that. It actually leads to a really tasty meal. It's just that oftentimes people don't realize it, right? Like, I'll have, for breakfast, I'll have, eggs, sausage, bacon. I'm just not having toast. I'm not having pancakes. I'm not having the syrup. It's tasty. Don't get me wrong. I love that stuff. I miss that stuff, but I can't have it. I can have the apples, but I can't have apple pie. But the apples are just fine. So just understanding what you can do and what you can't do, and just accelerating that will allow you to be more effective in beating this thing.
Hey, Will, man, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, dude. I think this was a hilarious episode. I think we touched on a lot of stuff, though.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, this was really good topic. It was great topics last time, but I think it was more work. This one's good because it's kind of incorporating work to stuff. So no, I really had a great time.
Awesome, man. Like, as I said, so Dave, do you want to, I'll just do a quick recap on who Will is and everything, then Dave, take us out.
Yeah, and by the way, if anyone wanted to follow Konsyg or what you're doing, Will, what's the best place to go to?
The best way to reach us is on our LinkedIn, KONSYG, or on our website, konsyg.com.
Yeah, you can check it out on the show notes. We'll put the links to both over there, and I'll put Will's personal mobile number and his email and everything, so you can reach him directly.
Put his address.
I'll put his address. I know his address as well. He lives somewhere, somewhere. I know exactly where it is, and I'll put some recent photos of him as well, so you can just take and use it, whatever you need.
Thanks a lot, guys. No, it's perfect.
You can curse him as well.
You guys can definitely show up. That stuff. Anybody trying to rob me, take a look at me. You know what it is. So it's all good. Good luck.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, is that a challenge? Is that a challenge?
Guys, Will is saying that Asian people can't rob him. FYI. Cool. Let's go.
I did not make an Asian thing. I just said good luck.
All right, man. Yeah, no, thanks. So, like Will mentioned, you can reach him there, and you can learn more about Konsyg. We'll put all the information we have on our show notes as well. Dave, man, you want to take us out?
Yeah, once again, thanks everyone for listening or watching us on YouTube. We really appreciate your support and your love and all the feedback you've been giving us. So if you can just comment or like us or follow us on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, it really goes a long way. So thanks once again, guys. Search us, hit us up at businessoverdrinks.com. Thank you.